6-foot table talk as we find out who walks the walk. It's the bane of our existence to practice social distance. 6-foot table talk.
Hello and welcome to 6-Foot Table Talk, a series bringing civil discourse and understanding back to the table. My name is Nigel Eastman and I am honored to be your host, but this series is not about me. This series is about the conversation. So let the talk begin.
Hello, I am CJ Rice. I am the minister with youth and their families here at First United Methodist Church, Plano, and I am also the new community manager of community co-working here at FUMC Plano. And I have with me today Darren, and I would like for her to introduce herself.
Thank you, CJ. I'm really happy to be here at First United Methodist Church of Plano. My name is Darren Dzengotita, and I'm the founder of Table Co-working.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And so we're here today because we have a new initiative. You might have heard about it on the Facebook or on any of our emails that we've been sending out. We are starting a co-working space here at FUMC Plano, and we're really looking forward to that. That is something that has come out of our HCI initiative that we started several years ago, and when we put in front of us some prescriptions for us to be better as a church to be reaching out to the community that is around us. And we have just been waiting for different things to kind of come into our space so that we can get started to really live into our vision that is connecting God and grace to self and community. And so when we met Darren and her team several months back, we got really excited about the potential of co-working here at FUMC Plano. And so we want you at home to know about what is happening there, why we're doing this, what it is, and what it's going to look like, what our dreams and hopes are for it. And so we'll get started, Darren, by telling us, what is co-working?
What is co-working? The million-dollar questions. Well, in the interest of time, I will say that I'm going to send along a link for y'all to add to this video where you can really kind of dig into it. But it's a movement that started about 15 years ago, and it really boiled down to people. It was folks in the tech industry, started in New York, where real estate obviously is always been an issue. And folks had begun working out of their homes and found that they were just lonely. I mean, that's the word that folks kept coming back to. So they began gathering together, folks that were working on projects at the same time, in different people's apartments, and they would move around, and it kind of just grew from there. In recent years, you might be familiar with some of the big players in what we would say is the co-working industry. So in our area, obviously we have big players like WeWork, Industrious, Spaces, and it kind of comes out of, that part of it kind of comes out of the old executive office suites kind of thing. And even they have been pivoting to the co-working industry to as kind of their upgrade of what they do. So like a Regus is no longer called Regus, it's called Spaces or something like that. But I would say that what we're doing here at FUMC Plano is what we call community co-working. So it's kind of stepping back from that, hey, we're just selling you an office and a desk and a chair, to, hey, we're gathering community here. And it's so consistent with your vision here. You know, the first time that we walked in and saw that banner that said connecting God and grace to self and community, we were like, oh, our work is done here. They're already doing it, you know. I mean, this type of activity is going to fit in so nicely to what your congregation and your leadership has really been leading the congregation toward. At the bottom, it's shared workspace. It's shared resources. It's saying this church with its 100,000 square feet on 36 acres has got a lot of assets. You know, in recent years, we begin to think of this much physical plant with all of its problems and all of its expenses to really be a liability. And so we're coming in and going, oh, man, no, this is an asset. You have so many assets here. So whether it's the industrial kitchen that's already certified here, that's amazing. Whether it's the full court basketball gym, whether it's, of course, the people who are amazing here and are excited about this opportunity. And then, of course, you've got chairs and tables and Wi-Fi, which is coming along,
Yes.
and coffee, and again, people. So it's really saying, how can we look at these assets in this space at this slice in time? Not what it used to be, not what we dream of it being in the future, but really, what do we have right now to offer to our community, to open the doors and welcome in people who have had no other reason to come here before or haven't seen anything, haven't seen themselves in this space before. How can we create something there for them?
Awesome. And you, oftentimes you'll introduce yourself as a co-working evangelist. And so how did you step into the co-working world? How did you find yourself there?
Right. So I was working for a faith-based nonprofit, the Missional Wisdom Foundation, and many Methodists would be familiar with Reverend Dr. Elaine Heath, who was the founder of that organization. And she had really begun to dream about and gather different expressions of Christian community. And we were operating 7 houses of new monastic living that many times they were occupying the parsonage of a church. So Grace United Methodist Church had the Bonhoeffer House attached to it. Cochrane UMC had a house there. So several of those around, and I was working for the foundation doing marketing, and people would often ask me, oh, well, do you live in one of these? And I would say, oh, no, my wife and I live with our kids and our dogs out in the burbs, and, it's not something, it's not for everybody. But I would always say, oh, but I work in intentional community, because I had begun working at the Grove Co-working in downtown Dallas in one of the old warehouses in the West End. And I said it over and over and over again. And then we were on pilgrimage we had walked across Scotland on the Way of St. Cuthbert, and we were on Iona, which is something that Reverend Dr. Heath liked to do with folks. And I had my inspiration on the island of Iona, where I said, oh, we should be doing that. Like, really, that's something that we could be doing. So came back from that. That would be September 2014. We had already established a relationship with Mitchell Boone and Neil Mosley at White Rock UMC because they knew we were doing things. We were doing innovative things at churches, and they were interested in working with one of the communities that we already had going. And they were familiar with the Grove as well. They had been there many times. So we went and said, hey, we think this could work. And out of that became the Mix Co-working, which is now called the Mix Creative Space. They have pivoted and evolved a little bit into focusing on arts and culinary and things like that. And that happens. And I think that CJ, in part of your travels, you got exposed to the Mix and and this happens a lot. People would come to the Mix, and it kind of stays in the back of their mind, and kind of like, wow, where could that happen again? So that was our first one of these, and then I left the foundation after about 3 years. Did a second one at Central Christian Church, which is Disciples of Christ denomination across town, and now that campus is called Central West Side, and so this will be the third church that's still a operating church expression here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. There have been other ones. Arts Mission Oak Cliff was an old church, was bought outright, and is now an arts center focused on theater arts, actually. But Sunday mornings, Sunday afternoons, different congregations come back into the church and have worship services on Sunday, and I think Wednesday nights too. So this work is very, very contextual. It will look different in every context, every setting. I don't have any rules around this is the perfect way to do it, because I have no earthly idea until we begin to discover and explore and find out. We say this all the time. Again, this is back to Dr. Heath. Show up, see what God's up to, cooperate with God, release the outcome. So that's what we're not here to say, you need to stop doing this and start doing that. We're here to say, what's already working for you here? How can this movement support what you're already doing?
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So I want to know what some of your favorite things about co-working are, and maybe if you have some stories of transformation from your years of working in different co-working spaces and creating co-working spaces. I want to hear some stories of transformation. What has happened in those spaces with people?
You know, it's so funny when we do this. A lot of times, the folks that we work with, the boards of trustees and things like that, are always wanting some metrics, right? They want to see some numbers. They want to see some spreadsheets. So I keep this thing called the spreadsheet of transformation, where we just tell these stories of things that are happening. And honestly, some of them are splashy and exciting, and some of them are just so small, but what they are is consistent. They're the kinds of things that are going to happen over and over and over again daily. And I say it's because we are in authentic relationship with each other, because we're the people that we see every single day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. It's really difficult to be in authentic relationship for 10 minutes after worship on a Sunday with a cup of coffee in one hand and a donut in the other. I mean, you really just don't have super deep conversations at that point. It's nice. It's lovely to see each other. We miss that right now terribly. But it's the day-to-day, just really getting to know each other that, I mean, I've even gotten to know you enough, CJ, that I can tell when you've had a rough day. I mean, we've had those kinds of conversations already, just in this short period of time. And it's just because we keep showing up. We are literally capital P present for each other, which is one of our gifts of Methodist membership, of course. Sometimes we're confused about what that is. We get real clear on that in the co-working movement. So one of the examples that I can think of is over at Central Christian Church. There was one of the activities that they already had been doing for years, and it's something typical of Methodist churches, would be to rent out a space for a recovery group and take those fees. And generally what that involves is unlocking the door, hey, let us know when you're done, locking the door back, and that's it. So at Central, it's one of those typical mainline denominations where the congregation population had really fallen. And for the most part, if you drove past that on any given day, there's no cars out front. People would often say, I didn't know this church was still open, that kind of thing. But every Wednesday at about 11:45, that parking lot got full. I mean, 20 cars just out of the blue. And I'm peeking out my window going, what's going on here? And then somebody told me, oh, that's the recovery group that meets at noon on Wednesdays. Oh, okay. So this happened like week after week. And then they would all be gone. The parking lot would be empty again. So we had an intern working with us at the time. And I said to her, hey, let's go upstairs and check out that room and, just say it was kind of a warm day. Let's open those windows up and just get some fresh air going. So we walked in there, and sure enough, the room was musty and the air was stale and the furniture was mismatched and a few broken chairs and a very dusty silk flower arrangement in the corner and some Bible verses on the wall that were from Leviticus, and this was for a group of gay men, recovery group, very helpful. And it was dirty, it was dusty, and I was like, oh, I said to my friend, the intern, I said, let's clean this place up. So we just spruced it up a little bit, not much, and we put out some pitchers of ice water and glasses. And then we walked downstairs at the appointed time that all these cars were going to show up, and we stood there and we smiled and said hello. And 50 minutes later, we went back to the door and we smiled and said goodbye. And from that time to this, that recovery group has expanded to not only 5 days a week. I found out just recently it has expanded to a second shift gathering. So they're actually doing gatherings at 8 o'clock at night and 11 o'clock at night. We have gotten to know those folks and can count on them for anything. They're the folks who help us build the IKEA tables. They're the folks who come to the fall gathering. They're out there at the dog park, just there to do anything for us. The single largest financial gift to the church came from someone from that group. He's still not a member of the church, but he just loved what we were doing. And our out-of-pocket cost for that was nothing.
Right. Just time.
Just just, Christian hospitality, over the top. I mean, not even over the top. When they really enjoyed it, then we brought out the coffee and some snacks and things like, and once we got to know them and they became co-working members, and we definitely encouraged them that, hey, especially if I hear that somebody's lost a job, I want them in the co-working space the next day.
Right.
I don't want them sitting at home wondering woulda, coulda, shoulda. We want to talk about it. We want to know your skill set. We want to connect you with other people. So a lot of that sort of thing was going on as well.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good example.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting because I think that we church people like to pride ourselves in hospitality. And I believe that it is something we do really well, especially on a Sunday morning, right? We've got the coffee, we've got the donuts, we've got greeters and ushers at the door. But what about those other times when other people are coming into our building? We just need simple reminders of that.
Sure.
So thank you for that story. That's a great story of that, and hopeful possibilities for what the future can look like here at FUMC Plano, as we expand out. So you spoke on this a little bit a while ago, but I want to know what your first thought was when you drove up into this parking lot and then walked into the building. What was your thought about the possibilities that kind of came to your mind?
Okay, so here's the good one. First of all, it's the good one. It's like,
right,
literally, good Lord.
Right.
And the second one was I come in from Rowlett, and so I'm at the corner there, and just confusion. I don't know where to go. I don't know. Do I turn right? Do I turn left? I wonder where the office is. I mean, it's just kind of a lot to take in. And from that moment forward, I continue to the degree that I can continue to have fresh eyes on the space. I try really, really hard, because then I'm inviting folks who have seen the same things over and over again to see the place with fresh eyes, and fresh nose and fresh ears, and it's a multi-sensory kind of thing. But mainly, it's just the asset. Again, I mean, just the fact that there are literally so many possibilities here. I'm really trying to get Matt signed up for aerial yoga in the gathering hall and possibly chainsaw juggling.
Chainsaw juggling is not happening. It's not happening.
Dang,
I don't think insurance will cover that.
But literally, so that we can have that spirit of true innovation and true what we call improvisation. So, if you know anything about improvisation, when you're on stage with someone and you have no script and you're flying by the seat of your pants, the best thing you can do is just say yes to everything that comes out of the other person's mouth. So I often tell the story that at Central, the first two folks that walked through the door with interest were a Jewish bagel maker.
Right.
And a flamenco fusion dance company. Did not have that on my bingo card.
Right.
So, so we said yes. And what kind of flooring are we going to need for flamenco, and how much noise does that make? But when your default is yes, and then you begin to, let's work through what does that look like, rather than, unfortunately, what we often see in church settings, the default is no. Because the default is all about, oh, somebody's going to get hurt. Oh, how are we going to afford that? Oh, who's going to staff that? I mean, all of which are valid concerns. But if your default is yes, those concerns are still but then you're open to the possibilities. You're open through, well, let's talk through that. Let's work through that. Who else do we know? Who do we need to bring into this conversation to illuminate something that we're just not seeing here? And then, maybe it doesn't work out, but at least you've opened the conversation. The new person that's come in feels welcome. They're excited to be there. They're excited to be a part of creating something new. And I think that's, when we're doing that, we're really talking about radical hospitality.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really get excited about different ways of being in community with one another within church context, outside of church context. Like, I'm a big fan of multi-generational church, right? Like, I want my teenagers to be with our oldest folks here in various different ways. And so what excites me about the future of co-working here at FUMC Plano is the coexisting that's going to naturally be happening between our church members and our co-working members. And so what do you what are some beautiful and transformative things that you can see happening in that relationship that is inevitably going to happen? And so what are you excited about for that?
Right. It's already beginning to happen because I've learned about the yard birds.
Yes.
I've learned about the quilters. And just yesterday, actually, I just happened upon one of the quilting ladies. I feel like I'm meeting them one by one because we can't be in gatherings. But, I learned that they were getting ready for the Christmas distribution of the quilts. And she was showing me that they needed to stack the quilts in plastic bags and put them way up high on a 6 or 7 foot shelf. And my immediate response was, oh my gosh, let us help you with that. We'll pull some people together. And so that's the kind of service-minded organization or group that we would have, that of course we would pull together as many people as we needed to help with something like that. Same with the UMW. So I met Michelle, who was sorting items for the UMW marketplace, and we got to talking, and I learned that she had, in her past professional life, had been working for an events company for like 3 years. Well, ding! I was like, oh, Michelle,
Right.
Can we sit and chat? Because, and so as she learned more about what it was that we'd be doing here and the fact that we would be having events on a regular basis that would bring people from the outside, she got real excited about the idea of being a part of that. Same with some other folks who have already made connections that have been great for them professionally. And then, the yard birds, I think every other day, CJ, you and I look at some piece of furniture that we could repurpose some sort of way, and we both go, yard birds.
Yes. Yes.
So, but I would love to see, classes being taught. It's in recent years, especially like as the pandemic has been a part of our lives, we've kind of looked at what I call vintage arts. So sewing, bread making, making pickles, jellies and jams. Well, who knows how to do all that stuff? Folks are a little bit older than you and I do.
Yeah.
So, how can they come together and see that that we want their wisdom and we want to facilitate ways to have their wisdom be transferred to the next generation for the transformation of all, really, just for that time of really getting to know each other and being together. Because again, that's how we create the authentic relationships that I kind of think we're here for.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I'm looking forward to how that continues to grow in this space. So I just want to thank you, Darren, for being here today so that our church members and anybody who's watching this video can know a little bit more about what we're trying to do here, what coworking is, and what our dreams and hopes are. If you have any questions about coworking here at FUMC Plano, we want you to email CJ Rice at cjrice@fumcplano.org. And so we can get you hooked up. We'd love for you to come and see this space. We're already staging some rooms up here, and so the time is now. So bring your mask, and we'd love to show you around. So thanks for being here today, and thank you, Darren. I appreciate it.
Thank you, CJ. I love being a part of this new expression of what it means to be the church in the 21st century.
Yeah, thanks.
6 Foot Table Talk.